Hey guys, hope you're all doing well. Welcome back to last week in AUCS. This is going to be episode 7, but it's going to be a little bit different. Now, you may have noticed that last week there was no episode. That was due to me casting a competition for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday last week. So I decided to postpone last week's video and combine it with this week. So this week's episode is going to focus on all the Counter-Strike that was played in the AU region and New Zealand, of course. It covers all Oceania over the last 2 weeks instead of the last 1 week. So without further ado, let's get into it. So there was a lot, and I mean a lot, of MDL played over the last 2 weeks. We do move into this new week, which will be last week of MDL. So we got 1 more week of coverage for that. But in the last 2 weeks, we start off with these matches here. And in these matches, you know, there's nothing really too out of the ordinary in this stack of 6. You see Bance taking over Incept, but, you know, it's still that sort of grace period for Incept with the recent roster changes. But apart from all of those changes in that one, there's nothing really out of the ordinary in this stack of 6. So moving on to the next 6 matches, we do see some close ones, some very large scoreline differences as well, but the ones that catch my eye more importantly in this one here is the Rooster versus Skyfire match here. It went into overtime, and if you guys are familiar with Skyfire, you know that there's a lot of hit and miss games, a lot of games that you would think, oh yeah, they should be able to win this, and they can't, or they don't rather, and ones that you think, all right, they might not be able to win this one, but then they make it really close. So Skyfire is still one of those kind of, you know, teams that are on the really rocky waters right now, but yeah, you got another match here that's kind of interesting. It's the Order versus Incept 116-13 over to Order. A little bit close for Order's liking, I would say, in that match. Into the next 6, and we do see another close one for Order. This time it was against Skyfire, you know, one of those teams, that team that I just literally talked about. You know, sometimes they look really good, other times they're looking really good, and it just falls apart. So I guess we really need to see some repetitive wins and some, you know, repetitive statistics from them, making sure that everything's just being consistent. And, you know, touch it with a grain of salt. You never really know what's going on inside of the TeamSpeak, inside of the Discord channels that all the boys using or in the servers. And, you know, Conky and I will have many discussions about this as well, but you never really know what's going on with all of them. And then, you know, one of the other matches that are in this this block of 6 that are really interested me is the Incept versus PC419 one. Now, we know that PC419 has seen roster changes recently as well. Well, rather not too recently anymore, but it is good to see that they're able to put it up into an overtime performance, gathering all the shakiness that we've seen in this roster recently. And we keep on going in the MDL. So this new section, we do see Avant and Rooster go into overtime, which was a really cool match on Mirage. You know, the Mirage map is always one of those interesting maps in the pool of 7. But yeah, 19-17 over to Avant was pretty cool. Everything else in this one, what was actually really interesting was the 16-2 Rooster taking on Truckers with Attitude. Now that's a very big different scoreline, and for a specific reason that we'll get into later on down the track as well. If you guys are, you know, familiar with the TWA roster in these past 2 weeks, then you know that we got something spicy to come up to later. Only a couple more to go now. We've got the 16-13 here for the Chiefs and Ground Zero, pretty close there. The 16-0 for Chiefs against Really Weird. Now, you might think 16-0, oh wow, it's really, really cool, and it's really, really bad at the same time, but Really Weird only had 4 players for the whole first half. The second half, the pistol is when they had their last player connect, and they lost the pistol, so 16-0. And then lastly, in this little one here as well, Incept versus Skyfire, 14-16. Skyfire finally winning it. You know, one of those versatile teams that we talk about time and time again. Sometimes you see them look really good, sometimes you don't. And I say this because I want to see the boys succeed, right? Because they're a team that they want to prove themselves in our region. We just need to see some consistency from them. It'll be the biggest thing. And moving on into the, second last bit of the MDL matches right now. You got Skyfire winning again against Bance, which is always good. Pretty in the ordinary, nothing out of the ordinary here for the remaining matches as well. So we do move over into now the last section of the MDL area. So sneaking in Sunday night at 8 and 9 o'clock, we do have 2 Paradox matches here. 16-4, 16-4, pretty standard in this instance. So with those 2 matches of MDL concluded, we do look at the ladder in the 2 weeks ago position. You got Order at top, Chiefs Avant, Rooster, GZ, you know, sort of the teams that we think would always be in this top sort of area. You got TWA, then you got Bance and Mako, of course. But then after the matches that were concluded in these last 2 weeks, we still do see Order on top, then Chiefs, then Avant, then Rooster, then Ground Zero. No shake-up whatsoever in that order there. But then you got Paradox moving in after their 2 wins tonight. Bance do move down, and so do TWA. So with the MDL concluded, we move over into LPL, which started last week. We do see the 4 matches played here. Of course, 2 best of 3s will be played each week. And in the season so far, we've, of course, had the 2 matches now. Out of these ones, it's pretty ordinary, except when we get down to the last one. Mako versus Skyfire. That's the one that I would like to highlight. So as you can see here on the left, you do have, Inferno, Dust 2, and Mirage being the maps that will play. With Skyfire, first map of Mako's choosing, does go into overtime, 19-15. So you think, okay, Skyfire, most people would have pinned them here to win the 2-0, but no, it's going to be the reverse sweep coming out from Mako. 16-14 on map number 2, and then the last one, 16-7, a bit of a landslide. And I do want to thank the boys as well, because this match did send us into 1:30 a.m. on a Thursday night or Friday morning when we did finish this one. But it was a really good series, and we do touch upon the point. It's going to be Skyfire again. I want to see more consistent results from these guys, because they do put in a lot of effort. Moe, Counter-Strike just flows through his veins. It's in his blood. Like, it's a thing he wants to do, right? And the effort that he puts in, I want to see it be rewarded soon. So after the LPL, we move over into ANZ Champs. Now, there's a lot of games that are played here, so changing it up instead of going through every single one of the BO3s, as you might have already witnessed in this video right now, there's going to be all of these ones here stemming from the, the first episode, or the first match being played here in the last 2 weeks, all the way down to the grand final at the bottom. But the first one that I want to showcase is the Renegades versus TWA one. Now, look at this scoreline. TWA take it 2-0 over the Renegades. Now, this hasn't really happened in an extremely long time, so really good to see another OCE team now taking Renegades and putting them into the lower bracket run of the ANZ Champs as well. But if you peeked earlier, you might have already had the spoilers there, which I do apologize for. But hey, you guys probably already know what happened in on these games. I'm just giving you a little bit of a refresher. Anyways, moving into the next one, the second map that I wanted to highlight here, on the match rather, Ground Zero versus Paradox. So in this one, we do see Ground Zero take the first map here of Inferno 16-8, but then it's the next 2 maps that Paradox do the reverse sweep. I feel like Danger, Mr. Sharvesh, is now settling in this team quite nicely. And then I've picked this one out as well as the rematch where we saw TWA beat Renegades earlier. Renegades, they fall back in line and they do a pretty standard Renegades thing. 16-8 and 16-9 against the TWA boys. And I mean, I say a pretty standard thing as well. Yes, Counter-Strike can be very fluid in the scorelines, but Renegades being, I guess you would say, the undisputed #1 team in our region, these are the kind of results that you would expect. And then lastly, we do move over into the grand final. Now, Renegades coming up from that lower bracket area, we do see Order, of course, in the upper bracket area, take the map advantage on Dust 2. Renegades, they were only good for 1 map in this series, and it was Vertigo, one of the maps that we kind of a lot with Renegades being a top contender on these days. But yeah, Order taking it 3-1 and winning out in Split 1 of the ANZ Champs is really, really cool. And we'll be waiting for Split 2 later on as well, because, there is a bit of a change up with how ANZ Champs is being run this season. And now we move over into the ESL Pro League, which has started up in the last 2 weeks. So the first match that we're going to see here out of the assortment of these matches is going to be Paradox versus Ground Zero, the rematch yet again. But Paradox, they do beat Ground Zero here, sort of their Achilles heel. I kind of feel in the next coming stages, GZ will want to try and topple over Paradox nowadays. And moving on from that one, the next one we're going to see here is Order versus Avant, which, Avant, they do end up winning it 2-0, the first one and the third one, all going into overtime. So a really great series played. And I think the best thing to see about this one is that there was no Mirage and there was no Dust 2 played. It was the different maps here. Although when we do see Order, we tend to see Nuke. And now with Avant, we tend to see Train a lot more as well, which is kind of cool because, seeing the same maps over and over again really isn't fun. And then the last one out of all of these matches here, as you can see, the last one that's kind of out of the ordinary, or rather not out of the ordinary, is going to be that final that we do see here. Now, Avant had the 1-0 lead moving into this grand final, but then Order, they really stood their ground at Mirage, Train, and Nuke, the 3 maps there. They ended up winning them all. 16-14 was the closest one in that first map. And then Avant, they couldn't really get everything rolling. Order, to a credit to them, played really, really, really well. And that is going to do it for this week's episode, guys. No little highlights or anything. It's been a pretty tough week for me this week and last week as well. A lot of things happening at work, coming to the crunch time of June and the financial year and everything. So I do apologize for this. I have to usually source out a lot of the clips and everything myself, and I did just run out of time, and not having a video come out last week, I wanted one to come out this week for all the people that have been asking. So if there are any clips that you guys do see throughout the weeks as well, one that comes to mind would have been I think Ricky's 4K spray down on Inferno during the Pro League game today. Would have been quite nice to re-winners, but I digress. Congratulations to all the teams that have won out throughout these 2 weeks. Congratulations to the teams that move over into the new splits, and the top 8 that'll make it into MDL, all of that good stuff. But guys, as always, if you've got anything that you want to see in this video, please do let me know. I appreciate likes, comments, all that cool jazz, and I will see you guys all returning on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday as well on my stream, on the LPL stream, of course, because Conky and I do take you guys through the LPL Pro season. But until next week's video, which I'll definitely try and make sure that there will be a video coming out for you next week as well, and get back into the flow of things, I will be ending this one here. So take care, guys, and I'll see you later.